I guess we'll switch gears a little bit here. I do want to talk about that WCW episode. Episode 4 of Who Killed WCW aired. So all the evidence is in according to that episode. Jason Halperin, dun dun dun. Who killed WCW? Who did it?
Oh man, you know what? it's, it's so tough to pin down one specific thing that killed it. I mean, there's so many things that did it. Look, at the end of the day, I really don't think that. I think it was the corporation. I think it was everything behind the scenes. It wasn't WCW itself. It was parent company. It was. I don't think they really wanted them. I think they really didn't. You had the Time Warner buyout of it. It was of the company of Turner at that point, and it just wasn't a direction they wanted to go.
I think that was a fair amount of it too. And I'm trying not to be too influenced by just the TV show because there's a lot. And, Eric Bischoff came off looking pretty good in this series.
Yeah.
And, we were talking to Coach Rosey about it earlier in the show. That Eric, I think in a lot of ways doesn't get his due, but, he did make some mistakes. I don't think you can sit there and say that Eric Bischoff's hands are clean on the whole thing. But they're not there without him.
Oh, absolutely not.
There's no way they're there without him. I agree with you in that the guys at Turner that he had to work with, man, if they could have turned the lights out, they would have done it in a heartbeat.
And they would have done it a lot sooner.
Absolutely.
It just wasn't what they wanted.
No, they were snotty.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, they were snotty. But the problem was, first you had a guy who believed in it, and the guy was the boss. But the other problem that they couldn't control was they were drawing huge numbers.
Yeah.
What are you going to do when this is your top show? It's like it's like you're sitting there and it's like if your kid is doing a math problem the wrong, quote unquote, wrong way, right? Or they're doing something a way that you don't think they should do it, but they get to the point where the problem's solved the way they did it, but it wasn't the way you wanted it done. It's like, oh,
well,
Dad, but
you got there, but it wasn't the way I wanted to do it. The way you should do it, but you got there. Okay,
and you just cringe. It's fascinating when you, and I'll tell you, some of those executives like Brad Siegel just came off looking so smarmy on that show. They really did. And they kind of deserved it. They did.
Oh, absolutely.
But I mean, there were some egos back there, and there were some, and I think Eric made some contract mistakes and they made some booking mistakes. I don't think there was any question about that. And, and Vince Russo, I get what Vince Russo was trying to do. I understand it. But the execution, I couldn't watch. I'll be honest with you. There were a lot of times on there where I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go watch Raw for a while. We got another crazy, weird skit going on, and I just can't take it.
Yeah.
I guess because as a wrestling purist, I was like, this is not for me. So yeah, it was weird, but they had their moments too. The match where Bret Hart had the fast count that never happened. The David Arquette, the bash at the beach. I mean, there were mistakes that got made, and in booking wise that hurt them a lot. The overbooking of the NWO.
Yeah.
You can't say that it totally wasn't the wrestling, but everybody makes booking mistakes.
Exactly.
Right?
This happened in every single company. Those are going to happen.
Yeah. No, the David Arquette one was horrendous.
Yeah. Well, as we discussed on that one already, that was the Shark Tank right there. That was jumping the Shark Tank on that one.
Just so bad. And it's funny. And I think one person that I wish I would have heard more from DDP. I got to reach out to him. I would love to talk to Diamond Dallas Page about this more individually, because yeah, at the end of that show when he dropped the FU bomb on one of the execs, and just some of the things that he said, he was very direct about what he thought, and you always felt like Page had his ego under control. So I mean, if I had to pick one performer to really get an opinion about all of it, he's probably the guy I'd really want to talk to.
He was one of those guys. He'd been there for forever, and he probably has a lot of insight on this.
Yeah, I mean, he was very thankful for
Yeah.
getting in the position he was. It wasn't expected to happen, and I was, and we've had Booker T on the show a few times, and I've interviewed him on Sports X Radio too, and I was a little surprised about a couple of the comments Book made in there. Just he flat out threw it at the feet of Eric Bischoff on the last show. I would love to talk to some of the black wrestlers that were in WCW, and because he thought that he would never win the world title because he was black, and I'm curious about that. If why he felt that way, if it was just a general, that's sign of the times or whatever. But I mean, this was the late 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, was it because of a certain person or people, or, just the way he grew up, or why would he feel that way? Because he had an ally in Vince Russo there.
Absolutely.
Vince Russo was like, I want to put the belt on this guy. So what was it? There was a lot of interesting little tidbits in that whole show that you could make a whole little show out of if you tore the thing apart. So yeah, it opened some eyes, I think. It did.
Yeah, it definitely did. It was not some of the stuff was shocking, some of it was not.
Yeah.
That kind of comes out in it.
Yeah, some of it we knew.
Yeah, some of it was already known, and it was okay. But I think the series in itself was better than I was expecting. More interesting than I expected, to be honest with you. You've seen so much stuff written and so much done on the demise of WCW, but this one is something coming from The Rock on this one. Didn't think it was going to be as good as it was.
Yeah, I mean, there were some factual things. If you listen to Meltzer and Alvarez, that there was some stuff that was just off.
Yeah,
but that we'll write the memoriam on this thing as it goes along. But it was I will lay it at the feet of the execs overall. So
absolutely, that's I said, that's where I put it. I put that one on corporate.
I put the gun in their hands, and with that, I'm also going to pull the trigger and get us into our next commercial break before we run out of time.